First of all, I want to say a big, big thank you to Katerina, because I asked her, please, whoever introduces me shouldn't be better looking than me. I really, really think. So, you've heard a little bit that my name is Foley, and I've come to talk to you today about retaining talent. And I can't tell you how happy I am to be here, because in all honesty, from time to time people ask me in English, which is a very straightforward language, where did you go to university? And I'm always a little bit embarrassed to say, my parents weren't rich enough that I could go to university. The honest truth is I wasn't clever enough. But that's what I tell people, my parents weren't rich enough. But now I can say I went to the VU. We don't have to talk about timescales. In fact, it's 1 hour. I can say I went to the VU. So, back me up there, please. I have 40 years retail experience, and most of that is in the company Aldi. You may know it as Hoffer here, but some students, I think, are from the US. Is that correct? Yeah. Aldi has 1,000 stores in the US, so maybe that name is known reasonably well there. And it's quite a successful retailer in the UK now, with 5% market share. And I spent from 1999 to 2012 doing that. And in the last 3 years, I've been an independent consultant working for whoever will pay me. What I'd like to tell you a little bit about is how Aldi go about retaining talent. Because I think it's quite an interesting story. It works, and from that point of view, it must have some interest. And there is a theme that underlies the entire business, which is based on this particular point. Jim Collins, who you may well have read some of his books, he's a management guru, said the most common reason why enterprise fails, the most common reason, is not strategy, money or ambition. It's the simple fact that the business did not put enough energy into retaining its talent. It really is a critical point. Think about all the companies you admire, all the companies that are really successful, and imagine that how did they do it? What is one common theme which made them successful? And you have to come to the conclusion, it's their people. Lots and lots of really good business ideas fail simply because they're not well executed. Why are they not well executed? It's nothing to do with the market, it's nothing to do with they don't have enough money. It's to do with the people that are actually executing it. If they don't do it well, the business fails. And when you ask the companies around the world how much effort they're putting into retaining talent, I'm still really surprised today to find out that many middle and senior managers can't really answer the question intelligently. Or if you ask 5 different key individuals, you get 5 different answers, which means that there isn't a common strategy, or if there is, it's not very well understood. I think it's worth us just thinking about what actually is talent. What do we actually mean by talent? I think it's the ability to understand the mission, successfully fill it, and overperform the expectations of the task. Think about Cristiano Ronaldo in the football game. I think he understands what he's supposed to do. He successfully fulfills it, and he overperforms the expectation of the task, says one Real Madrid supporter. It's a form of intellectual property. Can you imagine Real Madrid just losing Cristiano Ronaldo without really understanding why? No, actually I think they put a lot of effort into making sure this is a happy individual in the town of Madrid who's getting everything he wants out of his job and is enjoying performing for the team. Then think about how many companies do the same for their important people. Sometimes it works. If you think about companies like Google, companies like Microsoft, they have a great reputation for thinking how to make sure they attract the right people and then retain the right people. Talent is a form of intellectual property. Why does talent leave businesses? I stole this from Forbes magazine because it was very easy to just copy-paste. But I think it really tells a good story. And it resonates with me. Maybe it resonates with you as well. 40% say, I left because I don't respect the person I work for. In fact, actually, I'm pretty sure if we looked at the real detail, it would say, I thought my boss was an idiot. 50% say, I got different values to this business. I thought about it, I've been in the company for some time, and I have different ideas about how business should be done, and this company clearly has quite different ideas to me. 60% feel that their career goals are not aligned with the plans their employers have of them. Maybe you could say they have overinflated ideas about what they can do, but there is a mismatch between what the employee thinks and what the company plans for that individual. And 70% leave just simply because they don't feel appreciated. Nobody says, well done, or reflects that in how they are treated or paid. Now take it from how the employers see it. The employers see it slightly differently. They would say that one reason why they lose talent is salary. This company paid him more, so he left. This company offered a better package, so they left. Trust. Trust between the employer and the employee breaks down, and it ends up in being unable to retain the talent. Stress. Stress is mostly about change. Companies believe that they lost somebody because the change was too much for the individual, and it caused a level of stress which they couldn't cope with, and therefore they moved on. Self-determination of career path. This is also very important, and I think it's back to this point about both trust and the company and the individual having different ideas about how quickly somebody should climb the career ladder. Distance. Something really as simple as distance. I thought it would be okay to travel 1 hour and a quarter to get to work, but actually when I do it for 6 months, I find out that actually it's too much. And finally, the education system. A lot of employers blame the education system for not preparing people for work. I said all that as a kind of background. The guy that I worked for, I didn't start in 1970, by the way, but I did start in the late 80s in the company Aldi. Had a very, very direct idea about how to run the business. And the first thing he recognized when he changed his 1,000 German little self-service stores in the late 60s to a supermarket concept, actually a discount supermarket concept, is that cost control was actually going to be the key to whether this business would work or not. The better costs could be controlled, the more efficient the business was, the more successful it would be. And this was a very, very single-minded individual. Trust me, this was really a single-minded man. And so he set about organising a company where it was really clear everybody would work towards making the business more efficient by controlling the costs. He was a fanatic at it. And what he recognised was that knowledge management, knowing how to do things, was absolutely critical to being able to control costs. And the second thing he recognised is that controlling costs is a little bit of a mentality. And I can tell you, after 23 years, I go around the house switching lights off, much to everybody else's irritation in the house, because I'm just bred that way. I cut the bread no wider than it should be cut, not any way it can be, so I get more slices out of the loaf. Really, it has affected me over 23 years. I think about every little detail. I'll tell you a wonderful story. A store manager in Aldi, which is not a high-ranking position when you've got 9,000 stores, came up with an idea. And this guy is now famous in the organisation. It was about 10 years ago, because he found out there was a way to make more efficiency out of his staff going to the toilet. It really sounds a funny story, but it's absolutely true. He worked out that everybody went to the loo, went to the toilet, 2.5 times a day. And they did it sometimes in their break, and sometimes they just had to go when they were working. So he had the idea, okay, we all work in this store. It has 4 aisles, and one of the things we have to do from time to time is we have to clear away the empty cardboard boxes which the products are merchandised in. You know that in a discount store, the products are actually merchandised in the shipping cases. So from time to time, they need to be cleared away because they're empty. The customers have bought the contents, and you need to drag the next one forward. So what he did is he relocated the cardboard compactor right next to the toilets. And he said, Christian, your route to the toilet is this aisle, turn left, and out to the toilet that way. Francesca, you take aisle 1, and whoever takes the other routes. And everybody had their own way to go to the toilet, and the rule was, if you need to go, no problem, but just make sure you take all the empty cardboard with you. You will not believe how much money that actually saved. Because this is a business where every second counts, including trying to utilise the route to the toilet for the staff. Now, what does that do? That does a lot in terms of saving time, but it sends a real message when that's celebrated in the company. And I can tell you 10 years later that happened. I can even tell you the name of the store manager that came up with that very simple idea. That sends a very clear message what the culture is in that business. What is rewarded, what is held in high esteem. And this was the culture that Carl Albrecht set out to achieve. He put the highest priority on management recruitment. What kind of people, what kind of age, what kind of education that they should have in order that he started with the right kind of individuals, and he targeted something which even in 1970 was quite unusual outside of Japan. He said, whoever works for us, I want them to stay for 25 years minimum. 25 years, think about that today. How many people actually do stay in the same business for 25 years? It's not so common, especially in markets like the US or the UK. These are really, I believe that there are people from the Russian market here today. And they will tell you 25 months is a long time. in the same company, never mind 25 years. Not only did he set out to do it, but guess what the average life expectancy of a manager in the Aldi organisation is? It's 27 years, just by the history. So he achieved it. And efficiency became the key buzzword of the business. All bonuses, all promotions, all celebrated individual performances are based around efficiency. That's highly unusual in a retail business. Normally you'd write sales at the bottom of that. And he made sure that efficiency was the key. So the strategic goals of the business were enshrined in the HR policy. A career plan was mapped out for every individual. So if you join this Aldi organisation today, you have to come pretty much directly out of university. You have to have a business degree. You start in the retail organisation and you do a one-year training plan, which means at the end you get 5 stores and a district to run, which you have to do for the next 3 to 5 years and be successful. Out of those people, those people become the management pool of resource for every function, whether it's HR, property, legal. It doesn't matter what the end function is. They will have done those 4 or 5 years organising the stores, and actually having in the first year worked within a store. Imagine you've got a legal degree and somebody tells you you're going to fill shelves for the next couple of months. Maybe you think, oh, that's quite difficult. So what he did was, he said, I pay the best. I make sure you can't go and work for the best legal firm in the world, or the best consultant firm in the world, or the best bank in the world, and earn more. I will pay those people more money to start with, just to get their attention, than anybody else will pay. And the first thing you realise when you enter the company is that there are very strong cultural rules. Really very strong cultural rules. About timekeeping, about discipline, about all the things which underpin efficiency. That's kind of how the pay works. If this is the average graduate in red, earning a decent amount accesses the average salary, so earning a little bit above the, or actually substantially above the average salary, and it grows slowly, quickly at first, and then more slowly as the career reaches, let's say, the optimum point. Time experience, we're talking about 25 years here. What he said is, no, pay nearly double what the average graduate can earn, and rise it very quickly in the first 5 years, and flatten it out over the period of time. Because in reality, once you get here, you're 42, 43 years of age, you've got married, you've got a house, you've got kids in school. Actually, it's a big stress to change your job. You got into this company and you got kind of, let's call it positively brainwashed, that that's the best way to run the business. And it's quite difficult to actually leave. And if you left, probability is you'd have to leave to start here in order to finish up at the same point. If you really believe retaining talent is important, you've got to do things which do it. You can't just hope that it happens. But there's a second thing. Career, job satisfaction, it's not all about money. Money's quite important, but it's not all about money. And what I want to describe to you now is really the underpinning of why it's possible to keep management for 25 years. I'd like you to imagine, with my weird looking graphics here, that this is your job. Everything grey here. It's a good job. It's explained to you. You've got a job description. You've got a set of expectations. And you go on and you do it. In the first box with these wavy flags, that's your boss's job. He has, or she has, the same responsibilities as you, but has a little bit more authority, does a little bit more responsible things, because they have maybe more experience, they have more salary. And the idea is that you do your job, and if you have some new ideas, you check with your boss discusses it with you, says whether you can do it or not, maybe gives you the budget to do it, and on you go and perform. And normally in a big organisation there's actually several layers. I've just drawn 3 here, but the stars represent the next person in the organisation. They have again the same responsibilities as the original manager in grey, and the 3 layers interact together, talking about how to do business, listening to good ideas, discussing them, maybe looking for more and different ideas, and information flows up and down, decisions are made, and the more important the decision is, the more senior the manager that makes it. Pretty classic, to be honest. Most companies are organised in this classic hierarchical way. Now imagine a slightly different organisation of the same business. Here, the same manager has the same responsibilities, but the boss is precluded by the rules of the company of getting involved. You are given the job, you are trained to do it, and then you're told you have to do it. You have to make all the decisions yourself. The only touching point you can see there, where the more senior manager is on top, is, did I employ the right person? I'm not allowed to let them ask me, is it okay to do this? I'm not allowed to tell them, look, check with me before you do anything different, because last time you made a balls up of this particular project, and I want to know when you're going to do something different. You really have a set of circumstances where the job holder has the full authority to carry out their role. And on top of that, the various managers have their very clear job descriptions, and there's no overlap, none whatsoever. Now, in this sort of classic setup, what you get is a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, a lot of teamwork, you could call it, but you need a lot of time to make decisions. It's not untypical for the manager in the centre to come up with an idea, to put it to his boss, and the boss says, you know what, that's quite a good idea, I'm going to put it to my boss, and we will wait for the decision. And the decision is, it's quite a good idea, but could we think out this, and could we think out that, and maybe there's an alternative way to do this or that. So it becomes a project. And the ideas bounce up and down, and finally a decision's made. What happens in the Habsburg system is the manager thinks out an idea, and then does it. Maybe it doesn't always work, but does it. He's judged on how many successes they have, how many failures. More successes and less failures is a successful manager, but the manager who does nothing is judged to be a poor candidate for the job role. And the same for the next 2 roles, because they don't overlap. You just have to think about your job function. So the whole company is organised in a way where there's very little overlap and a very large, clear accountability for the role and the responsibilities. Which one do you think produces the greater efficiency? It's not difficult to work it out. There are a lot of mistakes made in the Herzberg system because you allow that. But this is a comparative business. This is not brain surgery where the result of doing it wrong is unfortunately
Mr.
you
Foley,
die.
Mr. Foley, there's a question over
I have time for questions, I promise you, so just store it up. This is not a system where the consequences of making a mistake are people die or some catastrophe happens like that. If mistakes are made, it's allowed in this kind of system that somebody learns from it and gets stronger next time. I promise you that this is the most efficient way to work if what you really want is output. Some conclusions from talent retention before we go to questions. It's really, really important. Whoever employs you, whoever you might employ you in the future, ask them the question: how do you retain talent? What is your policy? Because I promise you, if they have not a good answer to that, I don't think this business long term will be a success. Retaining the right talent should be linked to the success factors of the business. In the case of Aldi, it's about efficiency, and everything is done to retain the talent that can deliver efficiency. It's a long-term strategy. It doesn't belong to one CEO and it gets changed when that individual changes. It has to be in the fabric of the business, in the culture of the business. And I'm talking about copying the principle of this, not copying the case study we've just touched on. Because if you've got a different kind of business, automotive production, you will have different success factors, and therefore you need to figure out what it is that makes this business successful, what kind of people will drive it, and how am I going to retain them. Let's start with this question.
I was wondering about the hierarchy system of Aldi. Do they have a very quick way of getting rid of people if they don't live up to the expectations?
Very quick. Very
What
quick.
does it mean?
What it means is,
fluctuation rate, can you say?
yes, I think that's very important to discuss. Let's answer the first question first. It's a conversation. It lasts about an hour, and at the end of it, it's done. It's finished. The person leaves.
But how does it fit with with the policy of Aldi to retain people 25 years?
Yeah, very good question. Because what you can't do is just retain everybody. If you do, you end up with a scenario where people don't perfectly fit the organisation, and you've got to do that quickly. Because if you want an average of 25 years, and you lose some people after 5, 6 or 7, then the compensating person has to stay 40. Otherwise you can't come to an average of 25. So this decision-making process about who's right for this kind of business happens in the first year. In the first year. And the answer to your question is, what is the fluctuation rate in that first year? It's 50%. 50%. 50% of the people coming into this training program do not come out the other end. But you need to ask me the question, what is the fluctuation rate after the first year? Because that's part of the whole system. Then it's 2.7%. Out of 100 managers, after the first year, they don't lose 3. That's pretty unusual. But it only works by being very, very focused on making sure that first year works. So,
this is just for the management, not for the normal staff.
Normal stuff.
and also, very good point. I can hear it, and it was controversial enough.
But maybe that's also why they have to pay so much money in the beginning that people even take that risk of not, because you can,
But I can hear you.
Yeah.
can speak about it.
but we can.
Maybe that's why they have to pay so much money that people even take the risk to apply there and do the job for a year, knowing that a lot of people apply there.
Absolutely, because you can figure out this fluctuation rate on the internet. There are forums that tell you. My friend started and lasted 6 months. And if you have a fluctuation rate of 50% in the first year, this won't be a secret. In fact, it's part of the interview process. It's very normal in universities in the UK or in the US for the managing director of the business to stand up in front of a large audience at Harvard University and say, I'm inviting applications, I'm looking for this kind of person, this is the career path that I'm offering, and I will hire 200 people this year. And 100 won't make the end of the first year. I think that's important to be really honest about that. Because otherwise you will end up with the 100 that stay feeling, even though I'm staying, I feel a bit cheesed about people that were my friends and didn't come out the other end. So you have to be really, really honest about how the whole process will work. Let's just jump back one question, because what I was asked is, what about the normal staff in the stores? And that's, I think, also a very important decision-making process, because the store managers of the business, which one level below what the graduate area manager also have a life expectancy of 25 years. You cannot get your 9,000 stores operated properly if you have the normal fluctuation of store management that the retail industry has. You need lots more supervision because they last 2 or 3 years, and then they're looking for either progression or they're looking for an easier life, because it isn't an easy life to be an Aldi store manager where the job is go, go, go physically all day long. So the process is that you have to hire people who the top end of their ambition was to be a store manager. Maybe even they didn't believe that job would be available to them. And when you do that, none of those people, it's precluded by the organisation structure, can go any further in the organisation. That's absolutely the ceiling for those individuals. It's a little bit like the army. By the way, the Herzberg system belongs actually to originally the Austrian army. That's where the idea came from. And this system, therefore, finds the kind of people that would be happy doing that role long term and develops them into that position, pays them a level of salary that they couldn't earn anywhere else, and then keeps them in that role for a long period of time and gets the benefit from that. I tell you how it's sometimes explained in the company, because it might sound at first light as a rather controversial scheme. But imagine now Lewis Hamilton, the racing car driver for, which is the Formula One team he drives for Mercedes. Yeah? McLaren or Mercedes? Mercedes, I think it's Mercedes. Imagine that somebody says, you know what, you're such a good driver. We're going to make you the manager of Mercedes. That wouldn't be very smart, I think. I can just tell by the look of Lewis Hamilton, he's not going to manage Mercedes well. He's a bloody good driver, but that's it. And that's what the store manager for an Aldi store is. He's the racing car driver. He's celebrated in the company as being a very important person. He's paid extremely, or she's paid extremely well. It's the top end of their career ambition to be in that position, and then you can keep somebody. If I employed you as a store manager for an Aldi store, maybe you do it for a year, just for the experience. maybe it pays off your debts. But after a period of time, you come knocking on the door and saying, okay, I did this, thank you very much, what next? So it would not work to keep that kind of person as you are for that period of time. And so the whole company has to be structured in a way, the job has to be structured in a way, the pay has to be structured in a way that makes it realistic to expect that you can keep this person in this role for a long period of time. What questions?
I have in fact two questions. One which is very closely related to what you just said. After how many years the store manager is promoted to the position of store manager in average? And second, much more interesting for me is you said that the managers, they are kind of eliminated after 1 year or within the first year. How do you get to understand when during this first year he's just filling the stuff in the shelves? How do you get to understand his management skills within this first year?
Okay, good questions. First answer is very simple. It's just a number of years. A typical store manager for the Aldi organisation gets that position after 3 years in the company and probably starts either as a store specialist or store assistant or a store deputy. So most of the positions are promoted from within, but don't forget I told you that was a ceiling. Now, the graduate management intake happens at a different level and is the starting point, is the pool of resource for the future management of the company. So how, in the first year, can you determine whether or not you have an individual with leadership ability? And it's very simple. Running an Aldi store is difficult because of the speed you have to do it and the lack of mistakes you need to do, you need to make to ensure efficiency. So this individual comes into the company after coming straight out of university, and 6 weeks later is running the store. 6 weeks later is running the store. After 3 months, you see whether or not they have any management ability, because I promise you, the first few weeks, week 7, week 8 and week 9, they make a hell of a mess of the store. A hell of a mess. You 5 guys are working in this store for the last 3 years. You love your store manager, everything is calm, and the store manager is sent to another store on a project, and you get this fresh, young graduate. Christian turns up and says, "Hi, I'm Christian, I'm here to run the store. I have 6 weeks experience in the store down the road. Trust me, life is going to be good with me." And off they go. By the way, these guys are paid a bonus based on the efficiency, and Christian is there to wreck it. So he doesn't just make their life unpleasant, he takes money out of their pocket. And Christian has to be a leader. So we will find out pretty quickly whether Christian can lead. Because if the other 5 guys say after 2 weeks, okay, this is it now. I'm calling my district manager, and either Christian goes or we're all going. Then Christian has a problem. Now, of course, he's schooled in that. He's not just thrown in the deep end. He gets to sit with other district managers who went through the same process, who say, look after these people. Let them show you how to do it. Don't think you can tell them after 6 weeks how to do their job. Lead them. It works. It works for 50%. Because the biggest reason why somebody doesn't come out at the end of this program is they're not able to lead. They're not unintelligent. They've got a fantastic degree in their briefcase, so they're not unintelligent. They passed a very rigorous interview process that was panel orientated and was personality profiled. So we had a pretty good idea that Christian could get through the program, but still 50% don't.
I have a question. We have just launched is this model applicable in all cultures? Is it the same in the US? Is it job or not there?
It's a terrific question, because imagine that you turn up in the US in 1975 and you say, we're going to have a system where people join the business and they can make store manager, but that's it. Then there's a layer of tarmac and you can't go any further. And the guy in the Oval Office at the time started as an actor, and now he's the president of the US. And this company, Aldi, is saying, no, in our company, you cannot go beyond store manager. I mean, I think that's pretty controversial. So you have to be, again, honest. Why do you do it? What is the purpose? If you detect that the person you're employing for the store manager job, no matter how good they are, is not going to be satisfied with that job over 25 years, don't employ them. Don't employ them, because you're not going to get what you want. Now you have to ask yourself, is it really that important? And you look at the results of store managers who've got 15 years experience, and you compare it with store managers who've got 5, and you see this efficiency I'm talking about is dramatically better with experience. Dramatically better. There is, think about all the things you learned in your life. There is a relationship between repetition and performance. Anybody who tells me that somebody is a superstar at what they do, is world class, and is able to do things that the normal mortal cannot do, whether it's playing tennis, whether it's driving a racing car, whether it's Bill Gates in business success. If anybody tells me, they were just born like that, I will argue that point. And you know what I will come up with? I will prove that person did 20,000 hours of work in that field before they were 25, and that's what gave them the chance to get to where they were. It's not luck. Why is Brazil the best football team in or was the best football team in the world? I can't quite say it about the Germans. Because the kids start young and they play hours and hours and hours of football in the street. Don't ask me to explain the German situation. Please.
I have a question. So, if we look at the IT company, assume they want to restructure. So they have to lay off a number of managers. Should I conclude that they would lay off first the young managers and they keep the old one because they have a better experience?
That's a super question, because I have to think about the answer, which means I never got asked it before. I think that the truth of the matter is, that's a business that can't restructure. That's a business that's so focused on what it does, that if for some reason it didn't work, the business would just fall over. Now ask yourself, how long has it been in business, and how long has it been doing the same thing? Started in 1970, this concept. It's not the start of the business started in 48, but it was very differently run between 48 and 1970. So it's 45 years of basically the same execution. Products changed, store sizes changed, but the HR underpinning policy is not one iota difference from what it was in 1970. Not one even small point difference. It's so strong that if you came into the company and said, you know what, I got a better idea, everybody would listen to you. Everybody would listen to you. You would even maybe have your portion of the company to fiddle around with and make changes because you've got the authority to do it. But if you weren't able to produce the results, then you find yourself discussing with your boss why your performance is less than everybody else's. Now, if it's better, I'm pretty sure the entire business will shift over to your philosophy. But So far, philosophy changes didn't happen. Detail changes happened, but not philosophy ones.
Does Aldi want to hire the best graduates, considering ensuring that they never under the top employers? It's always BMW, Aldi, Porsche, and so on. They're never under the top curriculum.
Yeah,
What is the problem for the company?
I think it's a very fair point in Germany because of these very glamorous, hugely successful engineering companies where the glamour factor is just 1,000 times higher than discount supermarket. In fact, to be honest, it's hard to say discount food supermarketing and in any way sound glamorous. Really, it honestly is. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges to get people to even think about coming into that organisation. First of all, money helps. If you pay twice what Mercedes, then you get at least people interested to have a discussion with you. The second thing is the reality, which you can read on the internet. If you join Mercedes as a 26-year-old graduate straight out of university, I tell you how much responsibility you get in the first 3 years. That much. Because that classic system I set up there works for those kind of companies. Now, if you're happy to be in that classic system, and many people are, because it's quite safe. I have an idea, I discuss it with my boss. If we do it, it's not just me deciding, it's me and my boss, and maybe my boss's boss. We all agree, we all think it's a good idea, and if it fails, we can all say, you know what, it failed because of this, we didn't figure that out, and we'll collaboratively take the responsibility for it. In the Aldi system, you take the responsibility on yourself. That's a much bigger responsibility. That turns some people on and not others. So you see, it doesn't fit everybody. You have to find the right people for that kind of system. Now.
But how do you keep your employee actively motivated other than money and sales after 25 years in this position, knowing that they cannot have a promotion?
Well, we talk about the store manager role. How do you motivate the store manager? Because I think we have come to a different set of conclusions when you talk about the graduate intake, because there is no limit for those individuals. One of them will end up being the worldwide CEO. But the store manager, how do you motivate the store manager? Well, did you ever find somebody who has a unglamorous job, but was paid very well? It was the top end of their abilities, and they were good at it. Can you think of anybody? Ask them if they're happy. I promise you they are. You have to know that not everybody in the world thinks about being a CEO, running around the world doing this or that. That's not everybody's idea of fun. Having enough money for my house, for my family, living in the town I'm being respected, having a job where I know what I'm going to do and I have the opportunity to make my own decisions is a turn-on for many, many people. You just have to find the right ones. It's a question of fitting the right peg in the right hole. Now think about what turns on an Aldi graduate. The kind of individuals that are successful in that scheme say, I make my own decisions. Nobody tells me what to do. I have to lay out my results at the end of the month, the quarter or the year, but I make my own decisions. That's a big turn-on for those kind of people. They also do well on the money side, but it's not enough, I would say, to keep them for 25 years. And actually, I promise you, you get into a situation where you get a little bit seduced by the idea that you can make your own decisions, and a bit fearful that if I went into another company, I might have a boss who makes all the big decisions for me, or with me, code for me. And that's not a turn-on for those kind of people. But again, it's a question of fitting the right person to this particular type of organisation. Ma'am?
I read some articles saying that an employee shouldn't spend more than 7 years within a company from different reasons. Because he becomes a part of the system, he doesn't think out of the box, he doesn't challenge processes and whatsoever. What do you think about that? Would you recommend to somebody to spend 25 years within a company? Because, to be honest, I wouldn't recommend it.
Uh-huh. Well, I spent 23, so I was pretty close. And somebody should ask me why only 23 and not 25, but that will come later, maybe. The honest truth is, it depends if it's you or not. If you are an entrepreneur who likes to do different things on a constant basis, and you can't imagine to work in one rather rigid system where the culture has to be perpetuated by the management, otherwise the system doesn't work, I would say don't go anywhere near a company like Aldi. And self-determine your career, and maybe even 7 years is too long, particularly if we talk about very, very fast-changing and volatile businesses. I'm not telling you that that is for everybody. What I was arguing from the beginning of this is, how can you retain talent? So you have to first of all find the right kind of people, the people who will fit that system, and then make sure that you're doing everything possible to keep those individuals satisfied. My point is to have a policy. Because there are many, many big organizations who don't actually have a policy of retaining people. Or if they do, it's rather surfacey and it changes every 2 years according to some whims.
You were talking about head hierarchy, and you were telling that the new manager who is coming, are responsible for their acts and decisions. How the company react to the failure of these new managers?
I didn't hear you, sir.
I'm sorry. So we were talking about tech stack hierarchy.
Yep.
And we said that everybody, new managers who is coming, they are responsible for their decisions. How the company react to the failure of these managers, because I'm sure that they do not everything very well.
Very, very good question. And you are 100% right. If you give a lot of responsibility to rather inexperienced people, you will get mistakes. And you have to have a culture that says it's okay to do it once. Really, that's quite important. You make the same mistake, exactly the same mistake, a month later, and somebody will really start questioning, okay, why didn't you learn from it first time? Because it's pretty obvious it didn't work first time. And this is another big chunk of that 50% that don't make it, because sometimes when you're able to make your own mind up about something, you get a little bit attached to that idea. And it's yours personally, but you're not prepared to change it, even though it's not going in the right direction. That's not a good thing for managers who will have a lot of responsibility of their own. That's a little bit too dangerous to make the mistake twice or 3 times.
It seems that people in the first year are under an enormous pressure, and I assume that this creates a lot of fear, which is not a good motivator. How do you, does it work to have people who are scared all day of making mistakes and being laid off, or do you just hire people who are not scared at all?
That's a question. That's a question. It's a good one. Because in truth, fear is the worst scenario you can have for a manager who's supposed to lead and supposed to be confident. Imagine that you've stood up in front of somebody and said, we're going to change things tomorrow. I think it's going to work, and if it doesn't, I'm probably going to get fired. I mean, you're not going to inspire confidence to really make it work, right? So you really have to have plenty of examples where the boss comes in and says, oh, if you think that's a mistake, you can't believe what I did 3 months ago. I did this and it cost much more than your mistake. Don't worry about it, just learn from it. You have to have honest and practical examples, not just what the boss says, but what your colleagues say. Because in many companies, the boss says one thing and the colleagues say, don't listen to that, that's all bullshit. That's not how it really works. So you have to really have a scenario that allows mistakes, but not the same mistake. That's a different scenario. When I tried something, I really tried it, I really put my efforts into it, and the result I got was poor, and the problem was the idea was shit in the first place. Then if you go and do it again, who is going to follow that manager? Who is going to follow it? Because most of the individuals will know, that's a crazy idea, we've done it. We did it last week, and it really failed, and now we're doing it again. What kind of guy is this?
Could you please shed some light on the hiring process? Who actually made the final decision, hire or not hire? HR, some council bosses, super bosses, because you said that it's a responsibility of in the hierarchy, it's a responsibility of the upper level to hire the right people and give them the responsibility to do their job right. So if you're not good enough in hiring, that might think that you're not in a position.
Super question. No HR. No HR. Never. Not one single person. Nobody has the HR business card or title. This guy hires people. It's called the grandfather system. This guy fires this guy. The manager in the middle makes a recommendation. I can't work with her again. She's not right. She doesn't listen. She made the same mistake twice. I'm really not satisfied with Mary. I've discussed her performance. I told her, look, the people don't respect you and you don't have it right, but the boss has to make the decision. Because maybe the manager's at fault. Maybe they didn't put enough effort into it. Maybe they didn't find the right spark. No HR, line management only, with an HR function, but many functions. A marketing function too, no marketing either in the company. Very, very clear job descriptions, very, very clear responsibilities, and one of them is the grandfather principle. If this is the district manager, the graduate, this is the sales director, and this is the regional managing director. That's the structure. They do the hiring and they do the firing.
Sorry, just one thing, due to the time limit, I think we just have another 2-3 questions on this.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is that true? Do we agree with this? Because I was told we could have a second. Okay.
Otherwise, the line will disappear.
Okay. Okay. And I don't want that. So we have room for 2 more questions. I see somebody at the back.
Very short question. Where do you take the superior of the store manager? Where do you take them from? Where do you select them from? Because the store manager does not have that aspiration to go to the next level.
Yep.
And if you ever select one of the store managers to advance him, then you create a dangerous precedent for the rest of the store managers, right?
Absolutely. If you have a rule, it's a rule. Even if you think, maybe he could, maybe she could, let's try it. No. If you have a rule, you have a rule. Why is that important? Because in the hiring of the store manager, your goal is 25 years in the role. If you start to play with that a bit and hire some people who could go further, who might go further, I promise you they'll come and knock on your door after 2 or 3 and say, I want to go further. And if you can't do it, I'm going to go to another company to do it. Your goal is not going to happen. You will not get the 25 years. So you've got to be rigorously determined. It's got to be part of the culture of the organization that we, or Aldi, is focused on getting the individuals that will do that job. So what about the next role? What do you really need? You need leadership. Because in comes, this is the fact today in all the mature countries that Aldi offer have expanded in comes the new graduate intake. They've done, let's say, their 1 year in the training program, and out at the end of it, they've got their role. They're part of the 50% that succeeded as a district manager, but they're still 27, 28 years old, not very experienced, because 1 year is not a lot of time. And on their first day in their new district, they shake hands with Herr so-and-so, who has 20 years, 5 to go, of running a store, and is regarded as a kind of superstar within the business. And this young manager has the job to motivate this guy. He's, by the way, seen at least 4 district managers before, and maybe had some trainees who didn't work out, were part of the 50% that didn't make it, work in his store. So he will have seen a lot over 20 years. And this individual has to have the leadership ability to say, good morning, I know I only have 1 year experience, but we are going to work together and we are going to hit new heights in the next year. And you really have to have some personality and leadership to be able to pull that off. You need a lot of training as well, so the company has to invest in that training, but it is possible. At the back, sir.
It's you talk a lot about these 25 years, and it's clear that there is this initiative in the company. But do you really reward this initiative? How do you measure it, and how do you reward the person who is there and hire somebody for these 25 years? Because 25 years you cannot measure that simply for that person who hires that person. So what keeps the system running in the end? Because by the time that person stays 25 years, the other one is already retired.
Comparison. It's a very good question. Because if you don't measure it, and if you don't celebrate those who achieve the goal, then it doesn't count for it. So, everybody will know in an organization where most people are long-term, who the hirer was of various individuals and what their strike rate is. Because if you want to hit this 25-year goal, then the hiring decision was a critical one. So everybody in the company will introduce themselves as, hi, my name is Paul, so-and-so hired me. Ah, one of so-and-so's guys. And what we talk about is recognition. It's an important feature of the business, and it's all about measurement. Every manager will know what their strike rate is. It's published, and it's published in a league table. And you don't want to be on the bottom of it. Not because you get fired, but you just don't want to be on the bottom of it. It's not fun to look at a league table of 20 people, and 19 of them are getting a better result than you. That's just not fun. But it's fun to be on the top. And that's the system. Constant measurement of the things that are critical success factors. Don't get hooked on what I'm telling you from the point of view of that's the only way to run a company. Get hooked on the idea that every company has critical success factors. And what you have to do is work them out and then have an entire system which perpetuates them. Okay, now it's the tone of the mind.
May I ask one last quick question? How many hours
Of course.
do managers work average per week?
Yeah, very good question. Because that is a very important function in somebody who earns, store manager, by the way, earns, UK figure would be around £50,000 gross per annum. So we're not talking about someone who's rich. I mean, it's not a bad salary, but you're not getting rich on that. You're not buying a yacht. So the number of hours you work is also very important. And the level is capped at 45 hours. In the retail world, that's quite low. 60 is often the reality, even if it wasn't the plan. Okay, I'm around for the evening. I hope it was interesting for you, and let's enjoy a glass of wine.